All right, and welcome back to the Microcenter podcast. Today we have our special guest, Andy Lear. You've probably seen him in a bunch of our content here at Microcenter, and I figured today would be kind of a maker-centric episode. How you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm doing really good. There's a lot of fun stuff going on in the maker world, and I'm excited to talk about it with the both of you.
Absolutely.
And I know that Jacob is also a really big maker. Well, you're big into everything.
I love making stuff.
Yeah.
It's the best. There's a satisfaction you get, especially if you designed it. It's fantastic.
I haven't crossed that bridge just yet.
You'll get there. You'll get there. It takes a little bit of time. I mean, so for me, being a maker is always about like finding something that you really want to do, and then either already having the tools to make it or finding the tools you need to make it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of what's fun about Microcenter. Shameless pitch, right?
Yeah, I know, right?
That's what's fun about Microcenter. We have some of those tools you may need, especially 3D printers and lasers and the SBCs, the single board computers that we sell, Raspberry Pis, and then microcontrollers like Arduino. So you start to mix all that together, and you can make a lot of stuff.
Right. And so you've been doing this a while, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think everybody's journey is different in terms of being a maker. And I think, any maker you talk to today might say, well, I remember when I was a kid, I would tear toys apart with a screwdriver and get yelled at by dad or whatever. But the term maker really didn't catch on till, I don't know, 2006, 7, 8. And yeah, in those days, we started to have what were called hacker spaces. And I was living in Pittsburgh, and we had a place called Hack Pittsburgh come out of pretty much nowhere. I was at a yard sale in Regent Square, I think was the area, and we happened to come across this lawn full of Radio Shack parts. And so me standing there, and then another guy shows up, and he's standing there just looking at it, and some woman shows up, she's looking at it, and then after a while we're like, "You're interested in this stuff too? You're interested in this stuff too?" And they said, well, we heard about this place that's going to start up called a hackerspace, Hack Pittsburgh, in a garage downtown around Pittsburgh. And so that time and that era was kind of the start where people were getting together to make things together and share their knowledge in person, right? And that was, I have to try to remember, I think it was NYC Resistor.
Okay.
Was in New York City, obviously NYC.
Sure.
And that's where MakerBot came out of. Same type of thing. It was a hackerspace, a makerspace. And I think it's Bree Pettis and a few other people got together there, and then MakerBot was born. And MakerBot was one of the first commercially available consumer printers. Still very expensive at the time, but
don't we have one of those in the
office? I think so, yeah. I think there's one in the CEO's office.
Yep. Oh. Rick's got an old, I believe it's a Cupcake or a Thing-O-Matic. It had the belt on it long before the CV30 and other belt printers.
Oh yeah. It's really cool too, because it's like laser cut for a lot of the body. It's just wood with charred edges and stuff. Right. It's really cool.
It looks really cool with the wood and everything. Like it looks like kind of retro, but also like futuristic at the same time.
Yeah.
I've never seen it in action though. Does that one still work? Maybe
I don't know.
I'm gonna see if I can borrow it. Maybe we'll revive it.
We should try to print something with it.
That might be a fun video. 3D printing from 2007 or 8 versus now.
Yeah.
Do a speed test.
Yeah.
Do a benchy
or just like even slicing for it. Right. I'm sure you'd have to use an old slicer. I don't know if we have any profiles for
like
that.
Slick 3R with a slicer with the 3 in it. You might have to go back to that. And then there was like Gerbil. I'm trying to remember what the control software was called back then, but it's definitely come a long way. And I think the reliability of the printers probably got to where it needed to be faster than the ease of use of the software. But it's a dance between the two that you have to have easy to use software and printers that are reliable in terms of their hardware. Consistent filament diameters was a thing back then. Making sure that you always had the 1.75 plus or minus whatever tolerance you were looking for. So
I didn't know that they came in different diameters. Actually.
Oh yeah, what was the other big one was what 3 millimeter or was it
2.8 millimeter? A lot of people would just call it 3, but yeah. You had back in the day, I might be wrong here, but Ultimaker was one of the brands I think that originally did the 2.85 millimeter, and then Lulzbot did 2.85 millimeter. But it's kind of rare at this point to see printers that do that. Either they've been nursed along over the years and still work, which is great, or there's a special use case for having a thicker filament.
Just high flow rate or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not in my wheelhouse.
Yeah. No,
Like
I don't know.
It's so late. Like everything is just standardized by now. So now I just take it at face value. Like that's filament. They're all the same. Or like that's like.
I mean, that's fair enough.
Right.
That's I think back then it was mostly ABS. Like
Yeah.
PLA wasn't even really a filament yet.
Right.
It didn't become popular until what?
2013.
2013? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I remember specifically my first interaction with a 3D printer was a company I was working for had just got a job with called Tech Shop, and it was a place that built maker spaces all across the country. It was like a chain. Unfortunately, Tech Shop doesn't exist as it did, but a lot of those maker spaces still exist in one form or another through other organizations that have picked them up. But I remember probably the very first 3D printer I got to interact with was out in California at one of the shops, and it was called an Affinity Up, and it was just a little guy. And like the very first thing I ever printed was the sample print was I think it was either a squirrel or a duck. I know I did both of them, but I don't know which order. But yeah, that was 2013.
How long did that print take? Do you remember?
Probably it was a little guy, and it was probably about 2.5 hours.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Now something a printer would knock out in like 30 minutes.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, easily. But yeah, it was neat. And over the years, obviously 3D printing has come along. Laser cutters as well. Like the software, the big thing with laser cutters is sure you could slap a CO2 laser on a gantry and make it move around. Well, not actually, there's mirrors and everything involved.
Yeah.
Now diode lasers you can slap on a gantry, but yeah, but the software was always rough unless you were using like the manufacturer's software.
Mhm.
And then obviously software like Lightburn came along to make it easy. In the 3D printer world, the Cura slicer came along, and then Prusa slicer that's been skinned a million times, into Bamboo slicer and Orca slicer. All those different programs have made working with the models or getting them prepared for printing way easier than it used to be. It was a bit painful in the old days.
Yeah, I never had that kind of an experience because I didn't really get into like 3D printing and maker stuff until like 2020.
Right.
It is the very beginning of the pandemic and no one could find masks. So I was like, well, I'm going to make a respirator, and I got a bunch of HEPA filters and made masks for my family because I was, like everybody at the time, very scared. But that's how I got into it. I ended up buying an Ender 3, and then I did end up buying the wrong filament at first because I had no idea what I was doing. I bought ABS, and it just would not print.
Oh, yeah.
I tried putting it in a closet with a heter. Don't do that.
No.
I bet that smelled great.
Right.
Yeah, it's not great.
ABS is potent.
Yeah.
After a while.
Oh man, that's wild. So, and that's all before you came to Micro Center, right?
Yeah.
That's pre Micro Center.
Yeah.
How long have you been here now?
I've been at Micro Center for maybe 5.5 years.
Right.
And before me, give a quick shout out. There were a couple other buyers that have moved on to other things that helped really build it out. And some other people that are still here that really helped like kick this off and get it started. So I'm very grateful to them. In fact, one of them, the reason that I'm here is that one of them happened to post on Twitter one night that they were looking for somebody else to join the maker department here. And I said to my wife, I was like, maybe I should check that out. And it worked out. And 5.5 years later, you get to have fun buying stuff, checking stuff out, traveling a bit, and then also making videos, which is, not something I anticipated doing here, but it was kind of like hey, why don't we do a video about the Pi 4? And that did pretty well. And
Right.
Then a year or two later, we picked it back up and then just grew it with you guys.
Yeah.
So,
I think we really made a dedicated effort to content. And I think the things that we do for makers and maker content have always been kind of the strongest on our channel. And I think they're also, I love new computers and new components and all of that, but I think maker is like definitely kind of the most fun one that we have because we can just make all kinds of fun stuff. Like I got myself an A1 Mini and I made a Skibidi toilet that I printed at home. It looks awful on purpose, but I think it's funny.
it is.
It's broken already because it didn't survive my backpack, but it's absolutely horrific. But these, like, I've always like known about 3D printing. I'm obviously a lot newer than you guys at this stuff, but like I'm just getting the hang of it and I'm having a ball. Like all the stuff I've been making. I made a couple things for my son. It's a really nice way to make some like fun toys that, I don't really care if he breaks it because it cost me like what, 50 cents,
Yeah.
to make something. Yeah.
Yeah. 100%.
Well, I mean, 3D printing it's that old adage that if you have a hammer, everything looks like a nail, right?
Right.
You don't know what you're going to use it for until you have it for a while, and then you find something in the house that you identify as like, oh, that's probably something I can design with maybe tinkercad.com, or if you're more adept at like Fusion 360 or whatever, and then you fix something in your house with a 3D printer, and you feel that's a huge reward. That's a rewarding feeling.
It's rewarding the first time, but after the third or fourth time, my wife's really annoyed because she's like, "Why do you keep coming up with these projects to do stuff around the house?" I'm like, "Well, we can."
Yeah, we have this thing.
Because I was like, "Oh, I'm gonna make a greenhouse, and I'm gonna make like this and that," and I keep coming up with like more stuff. She's like, "Why? We didn't even need that." And I'm like, I think we did."
Yeah. Well, I mean, I called my mom yesterday, right? And about a year and a half ago or 2 years ago, at Thanksgiving, I was out in Pennsylvania where they live, and she makes cookies. She's retired, but she makes these awesome looking cookies. You see people making them on YouTube all the time. And she was like, well, I need this custom cookie cutter, and I was going to order it from Etsy, but I kind of need it tomorrow. And I was like, well, we're in the middle of Pennsylvania. If Dad and I hop in the car, we can be at St. David's Microcenter in about 2 hours. We can buy you a 3D printer. We can bring it back and print that cookie cutter. And that day we did that. We actually hopped in the car, went and bought her an Ender 2 Pro, just the little guy.
Yeah.
And some filament, brought it back to the middle of Pennsylvania, set it up for her. She traced out on an iPad the design. We used CookieCAD software. We sell CookieCAD filament at the store, but they also have software, which is where their name came from. Traced it out. It created the STL file, sent it to print, and within an hour and a half, she had the cookie cutters she needed.
Fantastic.
And
That's
now,
so cool.
Really cool.
I mean, like I said, I called her the other day, and she had just got done making 3 or 4 other cookie cutters the day before for a kid's birthday party in the shape of construction trucks, right?
Oh, my son would love that.
Right? So
that's actually really cool.
Yeah.
See, there's all kinds of fun uses you can get out of 3D printing.
Practical prints are some of my favorite. I mean, tchotchkes are all well and nice with your Skibidi doo, Skibidi A.
It's Skibidi Toy. That's what the kids are calling it.
But when you can like fix something or solve a problem, that's my favorite. Like I have a refrigerator that was in the garbage because it was missing a hinge, so I just designed and printed one, and it's been working fine in my garage ever since. It's fantastic.
How many projects have you been approached with at this company?
Oh, I don't know.
Because I feel like that's all we ever do is we're like, hey, Jacob, we have an idea for like a 3D print. Like, do you?
Yeah, I mean, a lot. Yeah. I don't know the exact number.
What's the latest one? What's your latest assignment?
That sign that I have to make for you.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
So
that's going to be big.
A microcenter logo sign that we're going to put here on the wall.
Yeah.
But we want to have it backlit, like illuminated from the back. So put an LED strip.
Mm-hmm.
But we also want to make it float off the wall a little bit. So like not just have it on the wall, but like kind of removed away from the wall. And then figure out power too. But we hide the power.
I think we're going to have to end up putting it on some sort of a board and like painting that board and putting all the wiring behind it. And then just have it all kind of combine down into the bottom, but have separate LED strips for each letter is probably our best bet, or like cutting it and soldering and stuff like that, which I may need your help with because I am not the best at soldering.
Yeah, you are kind of like the solder king around here. You fixed something for me a couple of weeks ago. This is before you went to China. Oh yeah, we're going to talk about your China trip. Yeah. But before you went to China, it was something that like we had that broke. I know it was an LED strip that I broke, and I think I broke the controller for it. And you ripped it open, and you found the contact point. And then it was just working. Yeah.
That's always like for electronics. So 3D printers aside, obviously Microcenter sells electronic parts like Radio Shack used to. And yeah, for me, that's where you say, okay, when did you start being a maker? Years and years ago. In high school, they had electronics courses, and I was able to take 2 years of those, and we soldered kits from companies like Kit, who we actually sell their Raspberry Pi kits. but they also made these awesome like 7-watt amplifier modules, and you could buy that, solder it together, and then put a speaker on it, and you just made your own little amp, right?
Right.
So yeah, soldering has always been a very cathartic thing for me. And I know that the fumes are probably really bad for you, but I love the smell. So it's
Everybody loves the smell of lead in the morning.
Yeah.
right?
Can you describe the smell? Can you describe what's so aromatic and great about it?
I don't know that it is aromatic or great. It's just
It's-
fond memories of building things, right?
Yeah.
Oh, that's fair enough.
Nostalgia.
It smells like brain damage.
Yeah, well, that and then dremeling what are those the circuit boards? They're like fiberglass. Dremeling that to the size.
yeah.
The smell of that's also really familiar and pleasant to me in a weird way.
Fiberglass is fun to handle. I always like feeling my hand just itchy perpetually for weeks on end.
Yeah.
Well,
Not a fan.
I think we'll bug you when it comes to the logo project because that's going to be next. We're doing a little bit of dress up here, but we definitely want to incorporate some more 3D prints and fun things to put up. So
Yeah.
that'll be a cool project. So you're in China for how long? Was it 10 days?
Yes, I was just in China for about 10 days. We went over to Taiwan first to go to Computex, and then we traveled on to Wuhan. We were visiting some manufacturers of filament and 3D printers over there. And then we actually got to visit, once we got down to Shenzhen, with Bamboo and Creality and who is our X-Tool, who makes lasers. And it was really cool to see all their headquarters and some of the factories. But yeah, it was a great trip. We learned a lot about the production of filament, and the goal is to create a larger story a larger video that tells the story of corn to compost, right?
Right.
Of how the corn becomes the pellets, how the pellets become the filament. What else is the miraculous material PLA being used for right now, which there are some very interesting uses that you might not guess, including being injected into your skin because it's biodegradable.
Right.
But
Was that like a Botox replacement? I think you were telling me about that the other day. It was like in lieu of Botox or something.
I think it's, if I understood it correctly, it's in lieu of Botox. And the one document that I received from the company, it basically said that it helps produce the collagen or helps the collagen in one way or another. And again, this is far from my area of expertise, far. But just the idea that instead of putting a fake material into your body, you're putting a biodegradable material into your body that could over time just go away. And they even had some samples of like sutures and thread that you would stitch internally that would eventually dissipate out of PLA.
Oh yeah, I had one of those once because I got a gash on my leg once, and they put the like dissolvable like stitches or something inside. And yeah, I don't know. They just went away, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's what that was made of, but I always kind of wondered about that.
Yeah.
Or where they went.
Yeah. No, it's
Where
a
did
great
it go?
material.
That's cool. So let's talk about Computex first. How long you were there for? Like what, a day or two, right?
Just a day. And in all honesty, I actually missed it. So the people I was traveling with got to attend it, Cam and Laura. But my flight from San Francisco to Taipei, I missed because of a connection from Dallas to San Francisco. I should have flown straight from Columbus to San Francisco, but c'est la vie. And
Right.
yeah.
It happens.
Yeah.
That's fine. Well, you had to see Taiwan for like a minute, right?
Yeah. Oh,
Literally a minute.
I've been to Taiwan before, and the nice thing was I got in early enough in the evening that I was able to get out to one of the night markets and have some food. And that's, I mean, that's just one of my favorite things ever, because there's meat on a stick, fried squid, just like all kinds of crazy stuff to try.
Right.
And it's honestly delicious. It's the seasonings they use, and it's heaven.
Oh man.
Awesome.
I do like some good street food.
Mm-hmm.
So then after that, where'd you go again? You went to Wuhan next?
Yep. We went to Wuhan, which is a large manufacturing area. We visited a few filament factories and saw the filament being produced on the machines, being mixed, the pellets being mixed to get the right colors. When we do the video, you'll see that it's really interesting how much color is needed to produce a vibrant color, and it's very little. Like
Right.
if I had to guess, I would say it'd be like 50 white pellets or semi-clear pellets to one color pellet.
I've seen
Wow.
videos of when they mix, I think it's like vinyl or some other like material like that, where it's just a tiny bit of dye,
Right.
but it spreads out over
Right.
the material, and you get a lot, but they have to mix it like really well.
Yeah, it has to be evenly mixed.
I always wonder about like quality checking when it comes to colors when they do filaments, right? Because they must have like some like color samples that they use to like check against, and some like standards and practices for like how they ensure like colors are consistent across the board. Because I mean, they're producing tons and tons and tons when
Yeah.
it comes to, you know, filament.
Yeah. So what we saw in both of the factories we visited were they had kind of like a lab scenario where they were checking and testing filament for different properties, including like tensile strength.
Right.
I'm trying to remember what they all were. One of it was like, and I don't know how this made sense, but it was they could test the humidity using a scale. I didn't quite understand how that worked, but yeah, they were able to test the humidity of the filament.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, because moisture content, that's kind of a big deal.
Especially with PLA. It's very hydroscopic.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we saw that. We saw some cool printers while we were there. Nothing that will necessarily make it into our stores per se, but some special use case printers.
Right.
And I think what we might see with 3D printing in the near future is 3D printers designed for specific use cases in an industry. Maybe you don't need a ton of Z height. Maybe you only need 2 inches of Z height. Then you could have a printer that's this big, and you could stack 10 of them up, and you know, your farm's way more compact.
Right.
Yeah, say like cookie cutters, like your mom does. You could have like 10 printers stacked one on top of each other like a server rack, and it's just a lot of output in one very small space.
Right.
Yeah.
That could be really, really cool.
Yeah, you could produce a lot of stuff. Now, would that be better than mold injection? Because it's
No.
more custom, right?
It's so there's pluses and minuses. So like injection molding is expensive to get started, but if you're producing a lot of the same part, it's way cheaper. But if you're not producing a lot of the same part, your cost is going to skyrocket if you try to do injection molding. It's way cheaper to do additive manufacturing.
Really? Okay. That's very interesting then.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
You know, there's with the cookie cutter thing, there's always the argument of, is it food safe or not, right?
Right.
And I think for the sake of cutting the dough and then baking it, it's fine. But it's not always about just the filament being food safe. It's also about, hey, it's going through your printer. Is your printer rated for food, right? So we've seen recently printers that can print chocolate, right? Was it Cocoa Press or?
Yeah, I think that is the name. Yeah, Cocoa Press.
Cocoa Press, and one of our people here at Microcenter actually has one, and he's been playing with it a lot. And it's really cool because it extrudes chocolate in 3 dimensions, right? So that's cool, but I think their system is designed in such that the nozzle is washable. It's made of some sort of nylon or silicone that you can trust is not going to get bacteria stuck to it.
Right.
So traditional 3D printing, yeah, it's you're never going to be 100% food safe per se, but for the sake of, you know, cutting some dough and then baking it, you've killed anything fine. Anyways. Yeah.
Yeah, especially with like PETG, because you could.
Yeah.
This is not advice, but I have thrown PETG stuff in the top rack of my dishwasher, and it's fine. As long as it doesn't get too hot, you're all right.
Right. It'll hold.
Yeah.
So, all right. So I know you saw a bunch of kind of like the filament. You saw some of our manufacturers who do some of the printers. What else did you see while you were over there? I think you went to the electronic market, right?
Yeah. So in Shenzhen, let's see if I can remember this, Futian district in the Guangdong province of China was Huaqiangbei. And Huaqiangbei is said to be one of the biggest electronic markets in the world. And before we went over, we were planning the trip and we were saying, what do we want to do? What do we want to do? Well, we've got a little bit of time on this day. What could we do that's kind of cool or beneficial to us? And I said, man, I wish there was a place like Akihabara in Japan, which is like this electronics and arcade game, and you can find retro games and all this stuff. I wish there was something like that in China. And sure enough, after a little bit of Googling, Huaqiangbei came up, and I was like, oh, we need to go there.
Uh-huh.
I watched a few videos of some other people that had gone, and I was like, oh, yeah, we need to go there. So we went, and it's not just like a building. It's many, many buildings over the course of many, many blocks.
Right.
Many, many floors. I was able to get through about 4 mall-sized buildings every floor, top to bottom, to look at stuff. And we'll have a short video come out here at some point that shows you some footage from it. But you had everything from components to fully built computers.
Right.
And then everything in between. You would have Bluetooth speakers. You would have batteries, like LiPo batteries, in every size you could imagine, with leads, without leads. There were multiple floors of different battery banks, like cell phone charging battery banks, multiple floors of iPhone cases, like in one mall.
Right.
Wow.
And Apple Watch bands and just everything. And
So it was like a microcenter on steroids.
yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's a lot of, actually, if you buy things from AliExpress, sometimes they're being distributed out of that area, I believe. So
okay.
like, yeah, you'll see things. The one thing that I regret not buying and then went and bought on AliExpress was a smart ring. And it was like $23 on
Yeah, I've seen
AliExpress.
those.
I want to see what they're about,
Yeah.
because I think they will become more of a thing. The Apple buyer and
What
I.
about that?
What?
Didn't you get that from the market? Or is
No,
that the
no,
real-
no. That's a real Apple Watch.
That's the real one?
That's a real Apple
Okay.
Watch.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. No, but the Apple buyer and I are guessing that one of the next products will be some sort of Apple Ring, right?
Right. I've seen some like clips of like a smart ring though. Like there is a smart ring product that like it has
Yeah.
the same heartbeat sensor and
Yeah.
some other like health
Oh, that's
stuff.
cool.
How do you even charge that?
A little magnetic charger.
Yeah,
or
probably like NFC or
wireless,
something.
too.
Yeah.
Like let it heat up on a plate or something?
No.
Let it like
It's got like a little
Coil.
copper coil in
Yeah.
it.
interesting.
Yeah, just crazy stuff. And then, but the other crazy thing is you see brands that we know, like
Mhm.
Asus. I bought a little Asus mouse that they only sell to India.
Oh really?
Like it's this great little portable mouse, and they had a matching keyboard set that unfortunately we don't get here, but it was aesthetically nice, and I needed a little mouse for my laptop because I forgot to take mine, and it was like $12, and it was, I mean, it's legitimately Asus. It was in another mall where they had an Asus store. Yeah,
They're big enough to have their own store there. That's crazy.
Yeah.
I mean Asus is a huge
It's a
company.
big
though.
company.
yeah,
We sell a million Asus products here.
yeah,
They kind of cover everything.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So I think moving on to sort of 3D printing holistically, right? Like in general, it's been an interesting year. Like we've covered a lot, even since like last August, we kind of started, really making a lot more video content
Yeah.
with 3D printing. And I think a lot has happened since then. We did that kind of like 3D printer roundup video for last year. And this year alone, I think we've seen a couple of changes and new additions.
Yeah.
What was the last one that we had in the lab?
Cobra 3 combo.
Yeah.
Right.
I don't think that one's in store yet, but it's a
Yeah.
pretty cool printer.
Yeah.
I really like that the multi-material system that they have. I don't remember what the acronym is, but I like that it's also a filament dryer, which is really, really cool and
Right.
handy.
I just picked up a filament dryer actually because my filament was getting a little. I print in my basement. It's a little humid, so it's
Yeah.
been getting a little brittle. So
Yeah.
I needed a dryer. But having that all in one in the AMS, like,
Yeah, it's just always there for you.
Yeah, I had to end up getting one as well because my husband got tired of me putting our filament in the oven for several hours. They had plastic spools at that time, but
you go to bake some cookies.
Yeah.
You're just like, why is this?
I wouldn't do it with a cardboard spool. But
Right.
Yeah, I think that'll probably be a trend going forward. I know we've gotten a sample of the FL Sun S1 and T1, and I think it's the S1 that has the filament storage kind of like built in. And I don't know all the specs of it, but I wouldn't
Yeah.
be surprised if it had a dryer built into it as well.
now I am really excited to see that printer go because I've never actually used a Delta printer. I've seen them, but I've never used one. And I don't know if you are familiar with Delta printers.
An Indie, yeah.
Yeah, it's really big,
Right.
and it's really tall. It's going to be like 4 feet, I think you said.
4 feet.
Yeah. I saw the box in the mailroom, and it's just gigantic.
big box.
Yeah, I'm
know
excited
how
to see
you
how fast that thing goes. I don't know how it's a big box.
Carted out from the
I mean,
back,
it's
probably.
bigger than like one of these chairs when they're
Yeah.
they're all compacted.
It's like the size of I don't know, 4 P1P combo boxes. It's a big box.
So I got a quick question, actually. What's the advantage? Because the Delta printer has like the 3 right things that make it move around. Like, what's the advantage of that over like let's say the A1 Mini we have sitting over there?
So in early days, and I don't know if this is still the case or not, but in early days, the idea was that there was less weight on the head of a Delta printer, so it could move more rapidly, right?
Okay.
So I think that's the main advantage. Speed was always like kind of the Delta's quest. And with the S1, is that the one that I think we were looking at the specs this morning? It was like 1,200 millimeters per second
Cubed, I think. Or no, that's the flow rate.
Acceleration. Yeah. No, but yeah. So, and again, one of our friends here, Matt, I think has been testing one. He said he had a bamboo print that would take 5 hours down to an hour and 15 minutes.
That's insane.
So
So especially if you're not doing multicolor, like
right.
that's a pretty quick printer.
Right. Yeah. I mean, obviously that's speed's going to continue to be the thing that people chase after.
Right.
New printers chase after here in the next few years. Will there be a point where it kind of taps out and you're at like 20,000 millimeters per second? We're good. We're like, okay, that's plenty fast.
Yeah, I mean, probably, but I'm also really excited about a lot of what the open source community is doing, because I see a lot of those things trickling into the more consumer, like standardized printers. Like I've seen a lot of multi-head, multi-material printers recently, and as part of a Voron project, and I'm really pumped about that. I would really like to see more of that in printers that we sell at some point. That'd be really cool.
That would be pretty cool. What's the one that can print? It has the 4 beds, like the giant, massive one. And it can print like
that's the Orange Storm Giga.
Yeah,
that thing's gigantic.
Yeah, that's why we don't sell it. It's gigantic. It comes on 2 pallets.
You're telling me the average microcenter customer can't just come in with a pallet jack and just throw it into the Cyber truck and haul it off?
They'll need a box truck. Maybe. No, I don't know.
Yeah. I've seen a lot of people on social media that when they build them, they have to like empty out their dining room because it's so big.
Yeah.
It's just ridiculous.
Got to have a 2-car garage and dedicate one spot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then you can print a chair. You can print like a night table. You can print it kind of looks like a nightmare to do the startup of it, though, because like I don't know, all the videos I see the 4 plates, but they never look like they're perfectly aligned.
Yeah, I'm sure there's going to be some.
Have you ever noticed that? Like they always look like they're always just slightly off from one another, so I can't imagine that's like an easy thing to deal with.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's a big plate, so I understand why they split it into 4. Like 800 by 800 is pretty big.
Tell me you can't take an 800 and just flop it and try to get your print on.
No. Well, I mean, what we might see with that though is like as 3D printing becomes more, everybody has it right in their homes. You might have print services for larger models. Like it's kind of like everybody has a car, but when they need to move stuff, they go rent a U-Haul.
Yeah.
Right. Everybody has a 3D printer, but when they need to do big stuff, they go to the service and get it made. So I could see that as a potential. Or even just the common goods being produced with 3D printers that are larger. So maybe you walk into IKEA in 3 years and they have a Schmarkfon and it's 3D printed and it's a chair, right?
I like that name, Schmarkfon.
Schmarkfon, yeah.
That's probably exactly what it would be too. The IKEA 3D printer.
Well, you go into the cafeteria to get your Swedish meatballs, and all the chairs are Schmarkfons, right?
That's actually a great idea. I could see that being a thing.
They somehow found a way to make it fast and organic. Well, PLA is organic. It's a biomaterial.
With the food printers too, they could also print the meatballs as well, because you could just put the meat, print the balls. There you go.
Yeah, that's coming. It's not joking. They are in labs. They are producing
lab-grown meat.
And they're extruding it into shapes that look like steaks.
Yeah, I as soon as I heard that they were trying to 3D print organs, I was like, yeah, it's going to end up being food at some point.
I mean, it makes sense, right?
Yeah.
Oh, future is a funny place.
We'll get there. I thought it'd be good just to kind of talk about some of the brands that we have, or some of our vendor partners. And yeah, so you mentioned earlier, like I'm a buyer. That's my primary position here at Microcenter, right? Despite what other people might think on any given day. I am in charge of the maker department in terms of the electronics, single board computers. I used to have toys as a category, and I used to have some other things as a category, but because the maker category is growing so much, we've got a great team of people now, Laura, Cam, Nick, that are all helping out with that. And honestly, Jacob helps out a ton with testing stuff and giving good feedback, because again, he's deep in the weeds on this stuff.
Jacob's always having fun. Like he'll be like, "Oh yeah, Andy got me a new this, Cam got me a new that," and you'll be like testing out something new and fun.
Yeah.
I remember when we first got the like A1s and A1 minis in, you guys were messing around with those.
Oh, I love those.
It was a good time.
He doesn't realize it's whitewashing the fence, because like I'm tired of always, oh, there's a new thing. Okay, we got to go test it out. Oh, there's a new thing. It's fun. Don't get me wrong. It's fun. But after your 30th 3D printer, you're kind of like, somebody else would probably have a better time with this.
Yeah, probably.
So no, I enjoy it. But the point is, like, being a buyer, we get to work with a lot of great vendors. Some of the ones I wanted to call out were Adafruit, obviously.
Right.
Their boards that they create are always extremely useful, extremely well documented. The guides that they have, I mean, I owe a lot of my success in programmable electronics to them because of their guides, their Learn system. We've got SparkFun as well. We've got, obviously, Raspberry Pi is very big for us.
Right.
We are very excited to always launch new products with them. And we've got a couple of new things, including their M.2 hat, which goes over the SATA on the Raspberry Pi 5. And then we've got their AI kit, which just came out, which also uses the M.2 hat with a M.2. Oh, I don't remember all the specs. I think it was like 14 tops. I don't hold me to that, but the new AI kit.
So yeah.
We have to take that for a test drive then.
At some point, yeah. I've been wanting to. I saw Jeff Geerling's video about it, and I was like, yeah, I'm gonna have to try that at some point.
Get our hands on it.
Well, and I mean, the Raspberry Pi is interesting because Raspberry Pi obviously came out as a maker product, right? Or at least that was the industry that adopted it first. And then you had industry get into it. And that's really been a big mover for them in the past few years. And part of that, I think, is its ability to process machine vision, right? So if you add AI into that, I mean, it can do some basic stuff, OpenCV, pretty easy. Like it can do face detection, whatever.
Right.
But if you want to do more advanced things, like in Jeff Geerling's, what did he call it? The structure movement. Like
the wire framing. So he had a camera showing like position of your body.
Right.
Yeah.
When I make this pose, do X.
Yeah.
Turn on the lights.
It's really cool.
Yeah. Right.
Oh, can we get that for the studio then? So when we walk in and we like do a pose, all the lights.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Podcast on.
Yeah.
We just do that.
Now, I in the past have not been super into SBCs and Raspberry Pis, but I'm trying to dive in a little bit now. And I actually got an opportunity recently I picked up a Raspberry Pi 5 and I got an opportunity to print the case that we designed for it.
Oh yeah.
Which was really, really cool. So he had originally done the Raspberry Pi 4 case, and I basically just modified it for the Raspberry Pi 5, added a little bit of ventilation because it actually needs it. Instead of the Pi 4.
You're being relatively humble. You made it quite a bit better because mine was pretty shoddy. It was enough to work, but he made it way better. And that's on our printables page.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Printables.com, you can find that model under Microcenter. I think we're under the brands page, Microcenter.
I think so, yeah.
In the description below.
Can we do that?
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Also, this podcast is now on Spotify.
Oh, is it? Awesome. Hi, Spotify.
But you took that case and you modified it, because remember you had the original one and then you made an AI one.
Oh yeah, that was a pretty easy thing. So I was originally just a photographer. I did a lot of like digital art. So I have a lot of experience with Illustrator, and I just made a design in Illustrator and imported it into Fusion to cut a hole. It wasn't anything too crazy.
Well, why did we put AI on the case?
Oh, well, we are going to be doing a video. It's shot. I haven't edited it yet. Or Kevin hasn't edited it yet.
Yeah,
I don't know, Kevin. But where we got Olama running on a Raspberry Pi. There's not a lot of horsepower on a Raspberry Pi 5. So it's a little bit hallucinating, but it's really cool that it works at all. And it's all in the CLI, which is really cool.
Well, I'm curious because you said that there was a hat that...
Yeah.
What is it exactly? It's because it gives 14 tops.
It's basically an NPU.
Yeah,
That we're just adding on.
So Google came out with something called Coral a while ago, which I think was like 2 tops, if I'm remembering from Jeff's video. But this, I believe it's 13 tops, or 13 or 14 tops. AI hat.
I think I see where you're going with that.
And yes.
Yeah, because I think we should test it and do a video on it because that would be really
absolutely.
cool. I mean, 14 tops, I know, because by the way, new Surfaces, these have 45 tops, so I know 14 is not a crazy high number, but I think it's still worth testing and trying out.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Cool.
13 tera operations per second, in case you didn't know what tops meant.
But is it tera operations per second, or is it trillions of
I've heard
operations
it
per
both
second?
ways.
'Cause I've seen it both ways, and it gets a little confusing.
Well,
but either way,
I don't know. Raspberry Pi is a UK company. Is it like color and color?
color.
I don't know. Kalur?
Right.
Kalur?
I don't know. This is first time I'm seeing tera operations per second too. I thought it was, but yeah, they use an accelerator called the Halo 8L chip in an M.2 2242 form factor that goes into the hat, the M.2 hat that you can also use for just SSD storage. Yeah,
And that's through, I believe that's PCIe 2 technically, but it's all like it's not quite actually 3, but it basically is.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think with, AI is the new IoT, right? IoT was big. Everything was going to be IoT. Everything's going to be AI. It really comes down to the use case.
Right.
And what's interesting about like IoT is that it's the buzzword has slowed down, but now we have IoT cat feeders and IoT birdhouses. But we don't use the buzzword so much anymore. So I'm predicting that in 2 to 3 years, AI will be embedded in things in such that we're not calling it out as AI. It's something we interact with kind of knowingly.
There's a developer that I've been working with to kind of like get a better understanding of a lot of AI things. We've been working together, and in our conversations, it basically we always say like AI is like really cool now. It's going to be boring in 5 to 10 years. Like it's going to be boring and uninteresting because it will be so ingrained in our lives that by that point it's just like it's kind of like the iPhone. It's like, yeah, it's new. It's it's been around, or even just the internet itself. Like the internet's kind of boring now, right? Compared to 20, 30 years ago. Like now it's like, yeah, it's just a normal part of life. So I think it's going to be the same thing with AI.
Yeah.
It's funny you mentioned Internet of Things though, because it's one of those trends that like, oh man, like my washer and dryer, have internet capability. Why? I could tweet on my fridge, or I can.
Yeah. I mean, I have quite a few IoT devices, but it's mostly bulbs, like light bulbs.
Yeah, right.
Or I do want to get some blinds at some point. That would be pretty cool.
Okay, see, that would be nice. That would actually. But do you want to tweet from your blinds?
Absolutely not. No.
Or do you want AI blinds that will?
Well,
kinda.
Yeah.
I mean,
like they would know the temperature outside.
Mm-hmm.
They would have some sort of sensor, but I don't know if this is really AI.
It's not.
Yeah. It's just taking inputs from sensors and then making adjustments.
Well, it's funny that happened to be what we ended up on. That's what I actually got the Raspberry Pi for. Raspberry Pi 5 for.
Right. Wait, there's a Raspberry Pi 54 coming out? Wow, we skipped a lot of iterations. Okay.
Yeah. I wanted to do a Home Assistant instance on my home network so I could have all local control of all my IoT devices, which is really cool. But I did find out that I can't run that in Docker. You can run it in Docker, but you don't have access to the App Store in Home Assistant if you run it in Docker. So I didn't have enough CPU power on my home server to virtualize it, so I just got a Pi, and it's more than enough.
Yeah.
It doesn't take a whole lot of processing power for that stuff.
Right. Not bad. I still haven't played with the pies yet. I think that's the next challenge for me now.
I mean,
Mess with that.
it's another one like a 3D printer. You either have to have a use case
Mm-hmm.
and then you make it, or you just have one sitting around till the use case kind of hits you.
Mhm.
For me, it was the retro gaming stuff. And this is back in 2013, 2014.
Right.
And it was a Pi 2B, I think, or maybe a Pi. I don't remember. It was old. It still had the RCA video jack out
Wow.
on it. Yeah, because I mean,
It's old.
right? Yeah. The idea was, I mean, and this was
For the kids at home, that's the little yellow plug. that
Yeah,
used
the
to
little
be
yellow
the yellow,
plug.
red, and white. That's the yellow.
yeah. But that was the intent. There was initially it was like get a computer to anybody and everybody in the world for cheap,
Yeah.
and so you would have the ability to output analog video still over
Right.
that jack, and so that's why it was there. I'm having trouble remembering right now. Somebody in the comments will probably tell me, but I don't think I can't remember if the HDMI was on there as well or if it was just the RCA jack. But
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
The first Pi I ever saw was a 3B, so
yeah,
no idea.
that's when they were really coming into their own. No, but the 3B was the one right before. Oh, I hope I remember this right. I think 3B was right before 3B Plus, which had Wi-Fi and Bluetooth built in for the first time. I could be wrong about that, but I'm pretty sure the 3B didn't have it yet. And then once whatever model it was, once the Bluetooth and Wi-Fi, that was like game over. That was like, okay, it's a real useful thing now because I don't have to add another dongle and I've got connectivity now,
Yeah,
right?
it's very cool.
You talk about use case,
Mhm.
and I got one for you.
Okay.
So we have that slider, that motorized slider,
Yeah.
and that motorized camera head.
Yep.
And I've always wanted to make my own motorized kind of robot arm that you can mount a camera to do specialized camera movements.
Okay.
A couple of servo motors for like the XYZ, and then like maybe build out the parts or something. I bought an Arduino kit a couple of years ago, and I started taking like the intro like lessons to like learn it, and then I kind of never had the time to really follow up on that. But I've been wanting to do a project like that. I think that's a big project though.
Yeah.
But
That seems like it. I don't know anything about Arduino, so you're on your own there.
yeah, I'll have to figure it out. I'll do some learning.
Yeah. But again, it was a project, right?
Right.
I had this is back again in Pittsburgh back in 2010 maybe. I had an old Hammond organ that was dismantled in parts, and I had the pedal board, and I was like, if these are just switches, could I convert that to MIDI? And what would do that? And I was, at this hackerspace, and they're like, just get an Arduino. Get an Arduino, and you can output it to a 5-pin DIN MIDI controller. So I still have this project. It's in my garage right now. I haven't used it in years, but the idea was I had something I wanted to do, and somebody suggested this specific board to do it.
Right.
And nicely enough, they helped me with the code. And once they gave me a couple lines, I was like, oh, I just have to repeat this for each note, whatever.
Right.
But that's really it. It's like you have to have something you want to build really bad to push you to learn how to build it, kind of sometimes. But yeah, it's been like that over the years. You will find something you want to do, and then you'll figure out which one of those tools can do it. And back to the vendors that we have, Adafruit again, like the cool thing about Adafruit stuff is that she was getting into the IoT connectivity
Right.
and making boards that had Wi-Fi built into them it was easily accessible. I'm trying to remember who was really the first one. There were other IoT boards before it got really big, like Electric Imp. It was the shape of a SD card, like a full size SD card. That was its thing, and then it plugged into like a carrier board that broke out pins and stuff.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, there's been a million of them over the course of the last decade or so, but it was thanks to those companies and their learning guides that a lot of people got into this. And the other cool thing was they would post projects that people did. They still do. And all the instructions for those projects. So it might be something where you like, oh, I like that guy's sneakers have RGB LEDs around the base. How do I make that?
Right.
Yeah.
And then you learn how to control LEDs, RGB LEDs with a microcontroller.
Then you can put that on anything.
Put it on anything.
Right.
You put it in a fireplace that has a bad chimney, so it makes it look like fire.
Yeah.
I did that, right?
Yeah.
The silly little things over
Yeah.
the years that you've tried and done with different boards and different sensors and inputs and outputs.
Right.
There's certain things like you, especially after you've done this kind of stuff for a while, you start to kick yourself a little bit about past projects and like, wow, I didn't do that right at all. Like I've done a lot of 3D printing time lapse stuff, and I realized the other day that I've been working way too hard on all of this. I could just have some G code in between layers where the head moves to a point. Oh, sorry. Head moves to a point, activates a switch, and then it just has the camera take the picture. I don't have to do anything crazy. I was doing like G code injection and like, I don't remember exactly. It was crazy how much work it was to get that thing going. And now I'm just like, well, that's way easier.
That's when you would get like the quotes and stuff to like.
Yeah.
Words coming
I need to do some more of those. I haven't done one of those in a
Yeah.
long time.
Those are fun videos.
That's impressive.
You haven't done one of those in a minute.
Yeah, I'm gonna do it with the new version of how to do this. I think because that's a lot of work for not a lot of video.
Maybe we'll do a video about how to do the video.
Yeah,
That'll come out pretty good.
yeah.
Oh man. All right. What else do we got? What else is coming up? I know that any future 3D printers coming down the pipeline that you could hint or allude to? Anything that you could feed to our audience?
So when we were in Shenzhen, we got to visit Bamboo at their offices. Yeah. Side note, they have a office cat.
Oh,
which
that's
they
cool.
call their CPO, their chief patrol officer. They adopted it from outside, and it travels between multiple floors of usually with the help of a human.
They got to patrol, keep the rat population down. Yeah.
So I got to meet the Spaghetti.
That's what they named it.
Yeah, they named it Spaghetti.
That's fantastic.
Right. We got to meet that and talk to one of our contacts there. I made sure to ask him because we'll put out a little video about being there as well. But I made sure to ask him if this was okay. And yeah, they've mentioned multiple times that they're working on some sort of XL printer, a larger printer.
Right.
I think they've also mentioned that it's due by end of the year. And the other thing that they mentioned, which was kind of cool, was they want to focus on print farms and how to better take care of them in terms of software. So I think you'll see from Bamboo those kind of improvements coming, which is neat because they're kind of straddling both worlds. They're really popular with print farmers and people that are printing a lot. And in the case of like the A1 Mini, the A1, and even the P1P series or the P1S series and the X1C, they're great printers for people who are getting started.
Oh yeah.
Not to say that anybody else's printers aren't. Creality printers at this point, like for me, the V3 SE is a great first printer. I think what impressed me the most was the lack of leveling nuts and screws. So self-bed leveling.
Yeah.
Right at that price point, with a PEI sheet, and yeah, if you just need a starter printer to get going, you don't want to spend a ton of money. Boom.
That was the one I started on.
Yeah.
It was easy.
Yeah, and that one does Z height as well, right? That's fantastic. That was the thing that I had the most trouble with when I was getting started with my Ender 3 Pro years and years ago, was bed leveling and Z height. It was just such a pain, but they've gotten so much better in the last couple of years.
If you don't, so bed leveling is always interesting. It's more bed tramming is the appropriate word, because you're not necessarily making it level to anything, but you're making sure that at all points in the bed, the head is the same distance, right?
Yeah.
Kind of like on a large milling machine, you want to make sure when you're hitting your metal at any point, you're the same height. Otherwise, you're going to have a wonky piece. But then the Z offset that you're talking about too, that was always something, even with, so one of my first printers that I ever had that was not something I built was a printer bot. And that had the Z height offset thing that it was like, I can't remember, induction sensor. It was like an orange cap on the end of a thing. And
yeah. I think that is induction.
And so that would help with the Z offset, right? And then you would go into the or the G code and change whatever it was, G93 or whatever, and change that a little bit if it was too high. But yeah, you don't have to do that stuff anymore.
No.
You shouldn't have to do that stuff anymore.
It's a lot easier now.
Yeah.
We got it so good these days.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think it's what's been attracting more and more people into it in the past 12 months.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right?
It's exploded. I mean, we've seen the numbers, right? Like we've kind of compared like what 3D printing looked like for us, 5 years ago versus today.
Oh yeah.
Like it's been crazy growth.
Yeah.
Really quick, I want to talk about the Filament Machine that we
yeah.
had over in
Oh,
Charlotte.
yeah.
And that project, because that one is actually really, really cool. So we were there, we got to see it in person, but walk us through that a little bit. Talk to us about it and then sort of what you did that you have on the table here.
Yeah. It's funny, to understand the scope of a project and how long it takes something to come to fruition, our chief merchandising officer kind of had this idea almost 2 years ago now for this machine. And he saw the carpet rolls at I think it's Menards. You got a Midwest store mix up. But yeah, at Menards, and the operator could press a button and the right carpet roll would come to the point where they can pull it out and cut it. So he described this to us and I was like, oh, you mean like that thing in Wally's house in the Pixar movie Wall-E, where when he goes back into his place, he stores all his stuff?
Yeah.
Like that's it. Right?
Yeah.
And that's basically what we have there. It's rotating vertically, a vertical carousel. And yeah, we talked about it for a while. And then finally they found a company that manufactures such things or said things for, usually for like a manufacturing plant to get parts out or to get consumables out of. So they identified this, they went and saw them in action and they said, okay, let's try it. And so we've had one here not more than 100 feet behind me.
Yeah.
It's still there.
The big box.
That we tested for a while. And then the first real one went into Charlotte and was loaded up. I think it holds 3,300 spools.
That's a lot.
Yeah. I think I'm either doubling this or not, but I think there's 16 shelves, and it's either 16 shelves and they're halved, so you have 32 like shelves kind of. And then the other thing with it is it knows where the filament should be.
Right.
So it has a strip of LED lights. So when you scan the barcode, and we'll talk about this in a second, when you scan the barcode for the filament you want, it will roll to that shelf, and then the LED will come over and tell you which row it's in. So you can then collect your filament.
That's really cool.
People really loved it. Like there was a line of people at the filament machine just to even just play with it.
Yeah.
Like not even, I don't even think half of them were getting filament.
No,
they just wanted to try it out.
Well, no, you've got the power of this monstrous machine at your disposal. You can scan and see. And it's exciting. Now, it's our first one, right? We're learning, so bear with us as we figure out how to make this work perfectly. But the whole goal with it, I think it's important to know, is that 3D printing has grown so much that we're running out of space for all this filament. Seriously, we have close to 600 unique inland SKUs, and that doesn't mention our other SKU partner or our other filament partners, IC3D, CookieCAD, Protopasta. I think we have some from Anchor and maybe a few others as well. But yeah, that doesn't take into consideration that. So the stores, honestly, they're saints for what they put up with.
Right.
They receive these giant bins of filament all the time, and they're tasked with organizing it, putting it away, repositioning stuff based on what comes in. It's a tall task. So our hope with the machine is that over time, it will not be as tall of a task. I mean, it'll be a tall machine, but not a tall task.
Yeah.
That's the goal.
Yeah. So what I was a part of doing is I kind of saw the machine coming together, but what I was tasked with was coming up with a way for the customers to be able to see all the filament that we have. And this was an early prototype of that. So I was given a lot of parameters, and I think this came out to be pretty close to what the final one was. But the idea was that you would have the filament holder be the correct color. But then you would also have swatches that the customer could take away and add to maybe like a key ring of their own. And then on that, you have the barcode, which is what is scannable for the machine. And you also have a QR code, which goes to the website, the product page for the website.
That's cool.
So assuming you still have this and you haven't lost it, right? All you need to do to find that color that you like is scan the QR code on there, and you'll find your orange PLA plus.
Mm-hmm.
Now, out of curiosity, and this is, I just thought of this question. When they're stocking the machine, can they scan the barcode on here and it'll tell the employee where to put it?
That's the idea, yes.
Okay.
And I've not been a part of actually stocking the machine yet, so I don't know the ins and outs. But yes, what it tries to do is group like filaments.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's PLA, PLA plus, the type of material, and then also the colors.
Mm-hmm.
So all I can say is that our folks here have been working with the manufacturer of the machine on the software and the logic pretty in depth. They're trying to make it make as much sense as possible.
That's awesome.
Maybe we'll inject AI. I don't know, right?
It'll know what you
It's
need
everywhere.
before you can get it. Yeah.
Right.
AI filament sorting machine.
Yeah.
That is super
But
cool.
these came out cool. Like people were taking swatches home.
Yep.
When we were in Charlotte, like people were like collecting them. I think it really helps to pick out the colors. Like I know you can see in the window, when you look at filament, but like having just the physical like sample that you could take with you.
And some
having the
filaments look
swatch.
different after you print them.
That's true.
Yep.
Like different levels of matte or shiny, depending on how hot or how quickly they're printed.
Do we have this file? Maybe we could put this file on our printables page. I know it's not interesting, but maybe people want to make
That's
their
not a
own
bad
microcenter
idea.
swatch.
We could. Yeah. I have it somewhere.
We'll put an MC logo
Yeah.
right here on the back. That'll be kind of fun.
All of this doesn't come without challenge. I like to be
sure.
transparent. There's a couple of things we got to figure out still, but again, it's something new we're trying, and I think that's what's cool about Microcenter is that Microcenter is still a company that can look at things and try new things and learn from failure or success. We'll see how this goes as we install it in Miami as well.
Yep.
And
Very
then
soon.
if we start installing it in other stores, obviously any new stores, we would probably try to install it and then retrofitting it to old stores to hopefully open up some space.
Right. And that's much needed in some of those stores too.
Yeah.
Because I know the newer stores are gigantic, but some of the older stores that we have, they're in legacy locations that have been there for a long time, and retail needs have changed a lot.
Yeah.
in the last 20, 30 years.
Well, Microcenter was formed in 79.
Yep.
Yeah, we're turning 45 this year.
That's wild.
Yeah.
That's
45 years old. Nice middle-aged retailer.
Are we gonna have a midlife crisis, or are we past that?
I think we're gonna.
I think
3D
that's what
print a Ferrari. That's the next
that's what
step.
it is.
By the time we finish the print, we'll be well into the midlife crisis.
Was it 5 years later?
Yeah, right. It'll take us that long.
Yeah.
So really quick, I just want to talk about one last thing, and that's inland filament. I know that we did a video like a month or two ago talking about inland filament and some of the changes and updates going on with that. Do you just want to talk about that a little bit more? I know we're working on a couple of things.
Yeah. I think with inland filament, what we're trying to do going forward is be smart about what we add to the assortment because we have so much. And we've got great partners like CookieCAD that really like kind of put themselves out there with the color combinations and stuff. And I mean, everybody learns from everybody, right? We weren't the first one to have duochromatic colors. I'd like to attribute that to Matter Hackers. I think they should get the credit, but it could have been somebody else before them. Yeah, so we're always learning. We're trying to make sure the customer gets what they want.
Right.
We're very serious about quality and consistency. We're still working on, I have to check to see if it's been rolled out yet, but the improved cardboard spool, like the reinforced cardboard spool so that it works better in the AMS. I still say, and again, I compared to some other people, I print this much, but I run the cardboard spools in my X1C AMS at home and haven't had any issues yet. But I know that power users do from time to time, just because of as many filament swaps as they're doing.
Right.
Yeah, so there's that.
Do you know when we can expect those to start coming in, or we're still working
Actually,
on that?
the last spool that I got from Bethel had it's the ones with the wax lining on the edge.
So
Yeah,
you've
had
got
that.
one already.
Yeah,
Oh, that's
absolutely.
awesome.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
So they're already hitting stores, or at least
Yeah.
starting to hit stores. then.
yeah.
Yep. And we've got a couple of things in place now to monitor the age of the filament. So we're tracking that way more carefully, and I think I don't know how many months or what the timeline is on when we pull it back, if it's been there that long. But we've definitely learned over the years what's appropriate and how we can keep fresh filament for everybody's 3D printing. So that's a big initiative going forward. On top of just maintaining good colors, good consistency, improved spools. Yeah.
I think everything in 3D printing, we're starting to reach that point where we're hitting like a maturity point, right? We're figuring out all the things. I think the tech is kind of getting figured out, the software, and I think even just the maintenance and upkeep of everything. And once we kind of get all that ironed out, I think you'll see more widespread usage.
Yeah.
So it'll be easier, the whole experience, top to bottom, right?
Yeah.
Shopping for filament, getting all the printers, the parts, even service is one thing that I know that we've been kind of looking into doing and helping service printers. I know we're dabbling into that, or at least looking into that, but I think that would be something that would be very interesting, where we could be your one-stop shop for everything when it comes to 3D printing. I think that is ultimately the goal.
Yeah, and we've continued to add parts and consumables, both from the actual manufacturer and from third parties. And people seem to appreciate that. I mean, we see in the numbers the amount of parts that people buy every week.
Right.
It's kind of crazy. Not to say the printers are bad. A lot of it's stuff that you do have to change out over time. Like, say, an Ender 3 Pro, right? You should probably change the nozzle out at least once a year.
Right.
Why not?
Yeah,
For what it
especially
costs.
like abrasives and stuff.
Yeah.
One of the things that I think is really fascinating about what you and the rest of the Maker team are doing is you're just breaking down barrier of entry into this hobby. And I think that that's just getting as many people into it as possible because it's really cool and we want to share it. So why not make it easier to get into? So it's really cool.
And obviously, microcenter loves to play with price, so we try to make sure that we're as competitive as possible. So for those customers that are able to, that for the longest time were able to grab like an Ender 3 Pro or whichever model it was for $99 or $100. I mean, even if that was your first printer and you got 6 months out of it, which you shouldn't. I've gotten probably 3 or 4 years out of my Ender 3 Pro since I bought it.
I still have one running from 2020.
Right? Right? Yeah. I mean, if you keep on it and you're not doing crazy stuff with it, it'll just print.
Yeah.
Right. So for that $100 that person might have picked up a printer for, to decide whether or not they wanted to get into the hobby right now, that's what we do. We try. Obviously, the customer comes first, right? We're there for the customer. We're there for getting them what they need at a great price. This sounds like a pitch for Micro Center, right?
I mean, this is a Micro Center podcast, but
Oh,
yes.
that's
But the thing is, like, I think the point that we want to get across is, like, we genuinely love this stuff. And we genuinely love, like, bringing this stuff to our customers.
Yeah.
This isn't like, we're selling kind of boring things, and, we're not selling toothpaste here. Like, these are products that we all like and love, and we want the best experience for ourselves as well, right?
Yeah.
As people who also use these products. So
It's really selfish.
our jobs. It is a little selfish, actually. Yeah, I think. But you know what? I think it benefits everyone, right?
Yeah. Well, and then you'll see that, like, as you continue to do these podcasts and you get other buyers on here, you'll see them geek out about stuff. You'll see Michael geek out about cases and cooling and all that stuff. You see Greg geek out about tools. I mean, everybody's got their passions, and that's kind of why
Looking forward to it.
a lot of us are here. Yeah.
That's awesome. And we're definitely going to have you back as well.
Okay.
Because I think you're one of the main, people here on the content team, as well as being a buyer. You're also still part of the content team. You make tons of videos with us. So we're definitely going to do more of these, especially as, like, more updates roll out. I got one curveball for you.
Okay.
Any chance that Bamboo is going to open up their RFID tags to on the AMS to like scan inland filament? Can we get RFIDs to get scanned on those so I don't have to keep punching it in every time?
No comment.
Yeah, no comment.
No,
Kevin will cut that bit.
Yeah. No, it's for them. It's really about like that's an added benefit to buying their filament. So, good on them. But yeah, it's tough. We've talked to them about it. We'd like to do it. There's even a video I saw out there about hacking the RFID for right.
Yeah, that's where I kind of got the idea because I was like, man, I would love it if I could save myself the 2 seconds it takes me to plug this in.
Yeah.
You know.
I mean, I hate to say, but half the time I just use Bamboo, whatever Bamboo's profile for generic PLA.
That's generally what I do.
Yeah, it's yeah.
That's okay.
It would be nice to see our name in the drop down though.
Yeah, right. Inland filament in the drop down. Yeah.
I think we're in the Orca drop down.
I think we might be.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks to Laura. I think Laura was working on that.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So.
Well, thanks for hanging out with us, Andy.
Yeah.
I think people are really going to like this, and they're definitely going to want to check it out. And we're going to have you back soon.
Okay.
But like you said, we're going to have more buyers on the podcast as well. They all have just kind of special interests in a lot of these different groups and areas, and they're real knowledgeable guys. So, yeah. Thanks for checking it out. Make sure to subscribe and also check out our Spotify page because these will be available on Spotify and other podcast platforms as well in the future. And stay tuned because we're going to have more 3D printed projects for you guys in the future.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any closing remarks, Andy?
See you next time in the Maker Lab at Microcenter. This isn't the Maker Lab, though.
No, sorry.
No.
The Maker Lab's somewhere else.
Yeah. Okay.
Bye.
By the way, the Maker Lab's also getting a facelift too.
All right.